Welcome, collective. So, for those that are interested in all things spirituality, all things based on scriptures, God, this is your type of insight, reading, video, okay? However, when it comes to let me share of this caliber, it's going to be based on life experiences where I share as testimony, okay? If you know, you know. So, if you want to stay tuned for the advice and how I got through it, because I've been through it, then this is your type of video, okay? Hello, collective. So, as you guys know, you know what it is when it comes to these specific videos, insights, revelations, testimonies. Okay, this is a different side of my type of messages, inspiration, and revelations. It didn't take long after I posted um, the life experience based Let the Weak Say I'm Strong for actually God came through before I posted this video is or that video. It was more so me just sharing my experience and how hard it is to kind of go through certain things on the planet based on your appearances, whether it's energetically or physically. And at first time in a long time, this is that season where I actually took it at face value and God said, say no more. I'm coming through. And so he did. Um, I say this to say it's very important, whoever you are, okay, to stand in your power. Don't let anyone diminish you, manipulate you, make you feel like you're less than or don't know as much based on their perception. Whether it's your belief system, the color of your skin, things of that nature. Because I feel like there is a hierarchy, there is a structure worldwidely that some people get benefited and some people get not. Okay, some people have to struggle and some people have to struggle less. Doesn't take away or diminish that human beings in its entirety doesn't go through shit, but today I kind of had my eyes open to, okay, there is something systematically going on with this. Now, as somebody that believes in the I'm having a spiritual experiences. Oh my god, let me find it up because I don't want to butcher it. But the whole saying where it's like I am having a human experience. It's here, so it gets right. Apparently, I cannot find it, but the whole saying where it's like I don't experience things based on my flesh, is more so my spiritual experiences and this borrowed body. Okay, because we have to think, or I do think from the perspective of you should live from your soul, your spirit, and your flesh is just something that's temporarily. Okay, what's really is important is the inside. A lot of people will say your heart, etc. In this area. So like a lot of times because of my belief system, I would just kind of digress that people are not is viewing me or I'm even trying to understand why they're doing the things they're doing because of programming, conditioning, and whatnot. Because one thing about me, I know that a lot of things how is set in place is from learned experiences, learned programming, and knowledge. And when you break that paradigm of understanding where they're coming from, good or bad, it kind of sets you free to like, you don't have to be trapped by it. I want to say it really isn't that deep because that is their lack of understanding and their perception of knowledge. But I'm not gonna diminish that anymore. I'm gonna be like, you know what? Even though I understand it, doesn't mean I have not the right to be like, a no is a no, or you're overstepping your boundaries. Because a lot of people that are not spiritually awakened, and they meet people that are, and I'm talking for people that are spiritually sensitive, right? You'll be knowing stuff, and then people are playing on your knowledge and your understanding because of your empathy, your kindness. It usually take a lot of people, and the unawakened people, they usually take advantage of it. It really is giving like the fight between light and dark, you know? Um, I see all this to say again that God came through, and there are certain things in that work field because I'm also setting up to get things in order in the matrix, get things in order with things that is uh, of a necessity to the human race. Okay. Um, I'm gonna still be me, but at the end of the day, just how, we can all be fasting and manifesting and trying to live healthy, all that good stuff. We are still on this planet, so we have to make money. We have to survive in the sense of, and this is also my hot take on this. Like this, you can correlate this to like sin as well. Sin is always going to be attached to the body because it's flesh, it's tangible. So when you're sin free, that happens when you ascend, or if I'm going to be on the book, when you are crossing over, when you are passing on. Um, to say that again, there are things that are of necessity when it comes to the human life, the human experience here. Food, money, shelter, um, things of that nature. I love being in connection with God, and a lot of people I feel like I'm antisocial, and because I'm too much of a spiritual being and doing all of this, and I'm all about me and my soul tribe, and that's good. I am not shying away from humanity. It's just that it is easy for me to detach from certain people, because we're not in the same vibration, and that's fine. That's okay. Whether that's okay. But at the end of the day, and I feel like that's why a lot of people that are chosen ones, or in the umbrella term of like spirit babies, they get looked down upon a lot and they suffer a lot. Add that to what's on your flesh, your background, your ethnicity. There is a structure on how things are supposed to be operated. Just recently on my Instagram feed, as much as I am about love and light, there are a lot of things that is kind of like grounded in the lesser. So much hate, so much prejudice, racism. And I cannot lie and be like, look over it. But I don't want to be that person either. But sometimes you have to address it. So there's that. Oh, sorry, guys. God came through. He handled the things with the people, or that person per se, that I know now that was used by an entity to come and kind of like distract my path. And thank God I am somebody that's spiritually inclined, because if I wasn't, I will base it on face value. They are prejudiced. They are, yes, prejudice and conditioning and racism, all that exists. I'm not diminishing that, but how I am, how I operate, and who I am spiritually, okay, that oversteps anything that's on my other body. if that makes sense. It oversteps what's on my flesh, you know? So when that moment took place, and usually in the past, because I kind of go into the umbrella term of spirit babies, but more emphasis on, empaths and that group, that wave. And I'll be like having a people pleasing moment, like, oh yeah, they were actually prejudiced, but it's not really a big deal. Or I'll be like, as long as they apologize, I can be kind of content. Um, and sometimes, a lot of times, I don't even address it, and people think because I'm always happy and smiling and is always like, oh, well, she's always so jolly and so nice, everything is good, but inside I'm freaking like having anxiety. Well, I'm not having anxiety like that because does major work on me when it comes to people trying to mess up my vibration. And that's why I'm so, you know, attached to my faith and my belief system, because if I didn't have that, I'll be crumbling here in freaking anxiety and depression and whatnot if I didn't see it from a bigger perspective on why people behave the way they do. Um, but again, I digress. When I was talking to the person that was, handling my case, and I was kind of like, why are you talking about things that have nothing to do with what we were here? Basically, me finding a 3D job, right? And they're here talking about my appearances, and they were basing things on generalization. And their, first of all, their answer was as expected. They were like, oh, I didn't mean to offend you. That's not my intention, and so on. And then they went on to say, which, if I wasn't, again, spiritually inclined, I would be like, that's odd. After all of that, they were like, if, of course, you can talk to my boss. And they put their boss's name underneath this email that I received and their number, and the boss's name of the person that was controlled by the entity at that time in their prejudice area. Because in their eyes, the reason why they were so prejudiced is because they were curious. They were curious about me, because of how I look. They were curious about me because where I come from. Despite me being natively born in this country, and they were not, it came from a, because again, I'm not saying where I live they don't have prejudice and racism, but if I don't get it from what people would assume as native born, native looking individuals, and I get prejudice and racism from people that is not even born or speak the language as in the same sense or equivalency as I am doing, I'm thinking here, okay, because in her eyes, it's kind of like treating me as an immigrant because, again, how I look. But if somebody were to look from the outside in and hear my story and just language based, they will switch our places in that work field. And I will work where she's working, and I will kind of tend to her needs in that work field, if that makes sense. So I know it might feel a little bit exaggerating and too much, but you have to keep in mind that when people are reacting from that space, okay, from their level of understanding, a lot of times I just feel like, let me just, it's whatever, right? But if it's affecting me to such a way where I don't feel comfortable. And again, I feel like it has to do with some sort of trauma that I've been through that kind of is reminiscing this. Um, it's not like I don't see color, that whole saying, but I don't react to it in the same way as other people have. For instance, I always say that there's certain terminology I don't use because I'm not from that space. Uh, so it doesn't really resonate with me. For instance, how in in America they say, um, for Black Americans they call you guys black, and in Europe, in Sweden particularly, if you are not native looking, okay, you can have a nationality and you can be a citizen automatically. The focus on colorism, and if you're European or Swedish, they will like respect that, and they will not go into things based on color. And I feel like that's similar also in parts of like or like in Africa as well, continent wise, where it's like it's more so I am from this part or this tribe. Similar to places in Europe as well, there is no such thing as that whole you're white, you are black thing. That's not where I grew up in terms of my environment. So when people kind of come across me and they want to know, like in Sweden, it's kind of like if you're born here, they will know this. Okay, there is a difference between immigrants and people that are not ethnically born, but they're born in that specific country, right? So all this in terms of race is not really a big thing. I kind of were more consciously aware of it when I was traveling, moved abroad, and I encountered those terms as you are African, you are black, um, and to some degree, certain type of prejudice and racism in your face. In Europe, is very behind the scene, very subtle. I haven't really experienced that until recently, at least at face value. Okay, um, so when this came up in 2024, uh, at my 30s, I was kind of like, okay, why are is this person acting like because it's one thing if I was even if I was an immigrant, just that alone shouldn't kind of give them the open space to kind of treat me however because of curiosity. Curiosity kills the cat. It doesn't benefit anything. And one thing about this Scandinavian European country is that very big on laws when it comes to discrimination and prejudice. The laws are very huge on that. And for her to be kind of in that position of dealing with people from our races and places, to come at me from that perspective, I was like, oh, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. I feel like I'm going off track, but her boss's name was Michael. Now, keep in mind, I only explained to her at one workplace I applied for a few recent years at the airport, and the boss was married to somebody from the Philippines. And he had this thing, but he was kind of from the outskirts of Sweden. So a lot of people from like the countryside, they they behave different than the inner city individuals people. And this boss that I had was married to a Filipino woman, and they were talking about their life and how a lot of that. So I'm here saying like I'm applying for a job. We don't have to go all the way deep into that, but that they wanted to kind of tether a connection between me and them, the boss and me, but their intention was just to kind of keep me under control. Because I found it later on when I applied for that job, it had the questions they were asking again was also based on colorism, was also based on prejudice, me having tattoos, the first thing that this boss was saying that, oh, I need to know what your definition or what type of tattoos you have because, they could be linked to criminal activity. If they were to check my resume and were to check that not only was I born in this place and you have access to check paper by law, if I have any activity of any sort, that question in itself was so uncalled for. And I'm here thinking, like, what the fuck is going on? So I digress. Years later, when I was trying to go into the employment system again, and this lady was kind of doing the same thing with my hair. I have natural hair, but sometimes I wear wigs and I have hair to my shoulders. And the fact that I do that is it's an anomaly. It's a shock in this day and age. Like, kind of like, why is it the center of attention? It has something to do with work. And I told them that a few years ago, when I moved abroad, I donated hair to the Leukemia Foundation. And like the fact that you're asking questions that has nothing to do with the workplace or me actually getting a job is really throwing me off, because if you were to talk to anyone else that is natively Swedish or even look European, like Eastern European, for an example, right? You wouldn't ask these questions. Like, I'm kind of like, why are you curious about that? That doesn't make no sense. And they're like, oh my God, that doesn't, I don't want to, I need to talk to you in person. I didn't, that's not what I meant. And they thought I wanted to report this to their boss. And I'm like, why should I? I just needed you to understand, which I told the person that was trying to help me with the job, that, there are certain ways you can go about doing things. You At the first meeting, you said that I was too nice and too open and whatnot, and I need to focus on myself. And you doing this, of course, I will speak out. So, like, in a way, they kind of helped me see what I needed to deal with and stop suppressing. I'm thankful for your apology because, as I was saying, as soon as the recent video I posted from this experience, this is the aftermath. I got a heartfelt apology. I also got the whole thing about this not being in my intention. If I put spirituality out of it, I would be like, I believe it because there are certain things that they have assisted with, though it's their job. They do it good to their understanding. But I also see a bit of a, I am just kind of fake it till I make it. Now, this is why I'm not going full on Karen. If I know that's the terminology, uh, mainstream terminology for somebody to always be nitpicking and explain and complaining. Sorry, but a Karen, right? And I was like, I'm not that type of person. For me, if I have an issue with you, I'll deal with you in person. I don't need to go to a third party. I accepted her apology because she apologized twice overall and then added the whole boss thing. I think she misinterpreted where I was coming from. And hence that she does, yeah, I think, yeah, she was doing that. And I was like, okay, that was not the deal. I need us to have boundaries because if she is trying to help me as a boss, we cannot be friends or family. I feel like that was the problem here is that, and she's not the first person as well that have crossed boundaries with me because I'm nice, because I'm always kikiing, laughing, and well, not. I'm nice. Some people say I'm approachable. Okay, I don't look like the stereotypical this, that, and the third. So therefore, and it's gonna sound very horrible, but I grew up in spaces where in America people view me as a token black friend, in that group setting. So could be also why I didn't react the way a lot of people would do. And now it's kind of like, fuck it. Like, it shouldn't be this way. There should be equal amount of respect and boundaries on all levels, whether I am approachable or not. Because I feel like almost they wanted me to act a different way than how I was looking and how I was speaking. Okay, the whole saying where it's like, black people. Sorry, Americans, I love you guys, but in the black community, when they're saying that if a black person speaks eloquently, actually, I got this from my closest family members as well when I was younger, where they have this assumption where it's like I'm too white, because I'm always reading and don't kind of do the same thing as the people that is close to me. Though I have mixed race family members, but like black weight on the African side, right, is like, well, she is not a typical. She's a Swede. She's not an African. The way she behaves and talks and so much. And um, when the apology came through, I felt it in my heart, and I was content. I was at peace. Actually, I was I was content the fact that I spoke my mind, because even though I do, it's kind of like, again, I brush it up, but this time I'm kind of like, you know what, I handle it directly. I didn't wait. Um, and now I'm kind of like, if anything kind of makes me feel some type of way, even for like 5 minutes, I'm gonna speak up my mind. Okay, I don't care if it takes a day or two. I'm gonna say it so I can have my inner peace. And if I need to be selfish for that, well, it's a long time coming. Um, so there's that, and I really feel thankful that God has engraved this side of me, or opened this side to me, because again, I could have just been like, it's not really that big of a deal, but then it will open the doors for people to kind of do the same thing. Because if I didn't experience it in the past from my previous boss, the boss that was married to this Thailand Filipino woman, and it really is full some type of way about skin color as well. Like, it's giving, I married her because, and he kept on saying that people don't believe that's my wife because she looks so young. So she had the actual boss had from the airport had a fetishization when it comes to age and ethnic woman. So like, I already know I was in a place where it's kind of like, but at this time, at that place, I needed a job. So you have to kind of do what you do. But thankfully, that didn't last long. And I think I mentioned about this, well, not in detail like this, but I mentioned that I quit a job, and then I went right into YouTube and right into doing this, because I'm kind of like, if the 3D matrix is gonna act cray cray, let me do my own thing, because um, I know what's coming for me, and to me is gonna be aligned with me for my highest and best good, and there's not gonna be shenanigans, because God is gonna be like, I got you. So everything is a learning experience. The funny thing is that the woman that's trying to, handle my employment situation here, she, yeah, the reason why I wouldn't mention with the Michael part, and I know I'm going like definitely overboard here. She, there, on a spiritual sense, I I knew what it was. When I see certain names, just like I channel messages for you guys based on music and messages from your counterparts, from whomever. I also get messages from directly from God and directly from my spiritual team. And they don't play. And I don't want to be like, stereotypical about that, but they don't. And the fact that I saw Michael, I'm kind of like, that person could have had any name, Swedish name at that. The fact that Michael was the boss's name of the person I was trying to, do whole cray crayness. I was like, oh, I see. Not that it gave me the confirmation of, well, the protection is here. Say no more, you know? Um, so for instance, if I couldn't handle it, I know where to go and it will be handled, okay? Physically, because things will always be handled for me in the spiritual realm, spiritually, energetically. But it kind of is pretty good when it happens physically as well. Like you can see it face value on paper. So there's that. Yeah, I know this was a lot. All I gotta say is that it's giving be still and know that I am God. If God is telling you to do something, do it. You know, if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel some type of way, and kind of like if it's affecting your confidence, and you're talking to. Also, one other thing, anything that's going on in my life, God is my best friend. So I'll be like, God, this was kind of like, but should I say do something? And I'll be hearing from God. Sometimes God will be like, you know what? Don't worry about it. And sometimes God will be like, if it's bothering you, you better speak up. And so I did. And the funny thing is that I kind of regretted the part where I went into my people pleasing mode for a second and asked the person that was being all up in their curiosity about me if I was too much for speaking up. Okay. I know it's a work in progress of mine, but at the end of the day, justice will always prevail. And when I said that, it rippled something in me in terms of, oh, I've had this kind of suppressed where I always kind of neglect my feelings and try to overstand and understand everybody but myself. And that is a dangerous trauma response. But I know we live and we learn. All I gotta say is that God will always come true. And I feel like during this season is more so like showing out and showing off in faith and standing on it. Like the whole mainstream saying is standing on business. And it feels fucking good. It feels really good. Um, as again, I'm just rambling and speaking from my life experiences. If anyone is going through this and feeling kind of like, trying to balance the energy of people's perception and colorism and prejudice, you might relate to this, spiritually or not. But at the end of the day, I want to say thank you guys for stopping by. And as always, good luck in your journey. And if you have something similar to share, I hope that you stand on it. You know, on that note,